Dr. Spectrum has been affiliated with the Squadron Sinister and the Squadron Supreme. His abilities include, via a power prism, flight, energy projection and manipulation, the ability to survive in space, and intangibility.
The Squadron Sinister are created by the cosmic entity, the Grand Master, to battle the champions of the time-traveling Kang, the superhero team, the Avengers. Dr. Spectrum battles Iron Man and is defeated when the hero deduces the villain's power prism, a sentient entity called Kryman, is vulnerable to ultraviolet light.
The Avengers eventually defeat the Squadron, and they in turn are abandoned by the Grand Master. Dr. Spectrum is eventually defeated when Iron Man crushes the power prism.
A powerless Obatu is arrested and deported back to his native Uganda. And during a subsequent battle with the Thing, Black Panther, and Brother Voodoo, Obatu accidentally falls to his death.
Unknown to Iron Man, the power prism reforms and is found by a sanitation worker, who eventually brings it to evangelist Billy Roberts, who, after learning of the prism's ability, becomes the second Dr. Spectrum.
Later, the Squadron reunite by the alien Nebulon, although the team is unaware of the fact that this is a new Dr. Spectrum. The villains receive greater power in exchange for the planet Earth, and create a giant laser cannon in the Arctic to melt the polar ice caps, thereby covering the entirety of the Earth's surface with water.
The Defenders prevent the scheme and defeat the Squadron and Nebulon, with Doctor Strange defeating Dr. Spectrum. After this defeat, Dr. Spectrum and his two remaining teammates are teleported off-world by Nebulon, returning with an energy-draining weapon.
The Squadron Sinister plan to threaten the Earth again, but are defeated once again by the Defenders and the Ant-Man. The power prism is kept by Ant-Man, who decides to modify the gem and present it to S.H.I.E.L.D.
Kryman, the entity within the power prism, possesses Wasp and transforms her into a villainous female Dr. Spectrum, who battles several Avengers but is then defeated by the Vision's use of the prism's ultraviolet weakness. Kryman assumes in his arrogance that Iron Man had kept that information to himself rather than sharing it with others, thus giving up an advantage. The prism itself bonds to the Wasp in an attempt to save itself, but is eventually removed by Billy Roberts after he is located by the Avengers.
Roberts becomes Dr. Spectrum once more, although on this occasion the power prism is in control and seeks to bond with the most powerful Avenger, the Thunder God Thor. The power prism succeeds in taking Thor as a host, infecting Mjolnir to use as a focal point to control him and defeat the other Avengers, but fails to take into account that to wield Mjolnir, Thor must be worthy.
No longer worthy to wield the hammer due to him being tainted by the gem, Thor drops Mjolnir and reverts to his mortal alter ego during a fight with Iron Man, which results in the power prism losing control and becoming inert, apparently forever. The Grandmaster later reforms the Squadron Sinister, bringing in Henry Pym's former lab assistant Alice Nugent to be the new Dr. Spectrum.
And courtesy of a phenomenon known as the Wellspring of Power, an interdimensional source of superhuman abilities, the Grandmaster increases the Squadron Sinister's powers, and they battle the new Thunderbolts. Thunderbolt's team leader, Baron Zemo, defeats the Grandmaster, and in the ensuing chaos, Dr. Spectrum and the members of the Squadron Sinister scatter and escape.
The Squadron are mind-controlled by the entities the Overmind and Null, the Living Darkness, but are freed by the Defenders and aid the heroes in defeating the villains. Dr. Spectrum and teammates encounter the hero Quasar and relocate to the government facility Project Pegasus.
After another encounter with the Overmind and a visit to the laboratory world of the Stranger, the group attempts to return to their universe and battles the entity Deathurge. All versions of Dr. Spectrum derive their abilities from an alien gem called the Power Prism.
The original prism, used by the Kenji Obatu and Billy Roberts version of Dr. Spectrum, is a sentient being called Krymon. Krymon was originally a Skrull who, after failing to usurp the Skrull Emperor, was transformed into a living prism as punishment.
When the Grandmaster requires champions to battle the Avengers, he retrieves the prism and grants Krymon several energy-based powers that can be used in conjunction with a host. Kenji Obatu is the first to coin the term Power Prism, and discovers that although trapped in prism form, Krymon remains aggressive and asserts his will via telepathy.
Krymon's mind is muted by Nebulon when the Power Prism is given to Billy Roberts, although Krymon reasserts itself during the quest to find and bond with Thor.
When the plan fails and the gem is shattered, Krymon's consciousness apparently dissipated forever.
Krymon could bestow on a host the ability to project and manipulate light energy in various colors, create light energy constructs of various shapes, sizes, and colors, flight, protection from the rigors of space, and the ability to become intangible. The Power Prism is vulnerable to ultraviolet light. When the Power Prism later exploded and fragments of it were embedded in Dr. Spectrum, his skin, hair, and costume were bleached chalk white.